Call to order the Wheeling Plan Commission for Thursday, June 28th, 2012. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Secretary, would you please call the roll?
Commissioners Dorband and Stylen gave prior notice that they would not be in attendance today. Commissioner Burns?
Here.
Commissioner Johnson?
Here.
Commissioner Fadum here. Commissioner Schaaf?
Here.
And Chairman Maloney.
Present. Are there any changes to the agenda, Mr. Jennings?
There are no changes this evening.
Citizens' concerns and comments. There's absolutely no one in the audience here, so I assume there are no citizens' concerns and comments, and we'll go to consent items, which we also have none of. Items for review, docket number 2012-10, SCBA 12-29, tabled June 14th, D'Agostino's Pizzeria, variations for signs relating to a freestanding sign and appearance approval of a wall and freestanding sign. Mr. Rufato.
Docket number 2012-10, Jeff D'Agostino of D'Agostino's Pizzeria seeking variations from Title 21 signs in Wheeling Municipal Code, Chapter 21-06, signs in commercial and industrial districts, Section 21.06.500, permitted signs, subsection B, freestanding signs and associated sections related to the sign, side setback, multiple freestanding signs on a single lot, minimum landscaping requirements, in order to modify an existing non-conforming freestanding sign at a restaurant at 241 South Milwaukee Avenue.
Mr. Jennings.
The sign docket is on a table currently. Staff is suggesting that those dockets remain on the table. The petitioner met with staff last week to discuss the sign and requested additional time to prepare revisions to the sign as discussed at the last meeting. So at this time, what we are asking for is a continuation of the hearing to July 12th, and that the other items remain on the table.
On the tabling, do I hear a motion?
So moved. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? None. All right, on the moving it to July 12th, do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Or made and seconded, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That's done. Docket number 2012-9, continued from June 14th. This Village of Wheeling amendments to Title 19 zoning of the Village Code. Mr. Jennings.
How exciting.
Thank you. I don't know that we actually opened this to the point of swearing me in, so we should probably, did we swear me in?
I believe we did. Oh, you know something? Last time was a workshop. Was it?
I believe we continued this without discussion.
Yes, we continued.
June 14th.
Right, okay. So we did that.
So I believe I should probably be sworn in, just in
Oh,
case.
all right. You don't look trustworthy. You swear everything you're about to tell us is the truth.
I do.
And your name and business address, sir. Stranger.
Andrew Jennings. I'm the village planner for Wheeling to Community Boulevard.
Thank you. You may proceed.
We have workshopped this a few times, most recently in May. What you have in front of you are a series of proposed amendments to the zoning code. I will go through them very briefly, mostly spending time on the things that we haven't discussed in detail or things that we've revised since our last discussion. We all had a chance to check through the document and see how some of these items hadn't been explicitly written out, so they have been now. So I will just review them very briefly. Administrative variation establishes a new procedure. We've gone over everything related to that one. Are there any questions? Well, I'll just flip through and you guys can feel free to interrupt me at any time. The catering use, nothing has changed. This would allow catering in industrial districts. Again, Removing the legal description requirement relates to the public hearing notice that the staff prepares for the newspaper. Packaged liquor sales is a term that is referred to in the code but does not have its own definition. Number 5, setbacks, has been modified since our last discussion. We did contact the airport. The airport and the airport's engineers reviewed the proposal. Following that, we tried to work with them to make sure that the section that we were proposing acknowledges the really unique configuration of the parcels. There are parcel lines that have no relationship to the leasehold areas. So we worked with them to try to come up with a section that would be more open. It still respects the streets, the public streets, but with the side setbacks, it's a little bit more open. Go ahead.
Just, I'm sorry, I didn't get to it quick enough. If we can go back to the packaged liquor sales.
Sure.
It refers, so the packaged liquor store refers to multiple classes of liquor licenses.
Yes.
So we're lumping that in irrespective of the liquor license they have. So Cooper's Hawk sells wine for off-premise consumption. That's a packaged liquor store, or is that a restaurant?
Cooper's Hawk is it's a good example. It's very unique. It is all of those things. It is a restaurant. So it has a liquor license that is sort of our catch-all license. There are liquor stores that would not be licensed the same way as Cooper's Hawk that would be considered packaged liquor sales as well. So the zoning code refers to packaged liquor sales, but the business may end up being a restaurant, something like Cooper's Hawk. I don't know if that makes it at all clear.
No, it just muddied it up a little bit. So is that, what is that considered?
They are a restaurant, and they have a special use that also allows packaged
So
liquor sales.
they have a special use for the packaged liquor, they're not considered a packaged liquor store?
Not in the same
Not in the
way.
same sense. Okay, all right.
So mom and dad would be a packaged liquor store
Yes,
exclusively.
right. It is also a convenience store.
But as far
Okay.
as liquor's, it's convenient package store.
Okay, great. All right, thank you.
So moving on to the airport district then, the airport engineers made some suggestions. Our staff also reviewed the bulk regulations, found that the I-2 was probably a better fit than what we were looking at in the B3, just on the size of the building. So that's the current proposal, does both of those things. Are there any questions on these ones? The specialty school parking requirement, no change. It just goes to a capacity-based rather than a square footage-based requirement. Number 7, group homes is unchanged. There is a special use requirement for a large group home proposed in this amendment. As we said before, this is very similar to what was done in Des Plaines. There's nothing changed from our last workshop on this. Donation boxes, again, nothing changed from the last workshop. And in reality, not much changes from our current code. It just words it slightly differently. Number 9, enclosed automobile sales. The specific regulations hadn't been written out during our last workshop. This is essentially what we talked about. We had not written it out, though. The way it's written right now, the definition limits this to completely enclosed and a maximum of 10 vehicles at a given time in the industrial and light industrial mixed-use district.
And when you say completely enclosed, can they have a few outside also or not?
Not under this.
Okay.
I suppose if they were in a district that allows outdoor storage, they could come for an outdoor storage review. Outdoor storage is pretty limited, so you could have, maybe 1 or 2 outside after that. But at minimum, it's a site plan review to get that done.
Okay, so they could have 1 or 2 maybe display cars outside
it would require the
variation.
So if they're going to come outside of the building in any way, they're going to need to come in front of the Plan Commission and possibly the board as well, depending on how many cars they're talking about.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions on that one? Outdoor dining, the version that you had was missing a new section. If you take a look at the memo in front of you, there's a section proposed that would add outdoor dining to our non-residential use regulations. There's a series of use regulations that cover some of the unique uses. So outdoor dining, if you take a look at this memo, would have a series of regulations just spelling out how the minor site plan review is going to be handled when it comes in front of the commission with respect to the walkways, et cetera, trash receptacles, table busing, that sort of thing. Are there any questions on that part of it?
No.
Again, it still is going to require minor site plan review at minimum. The update to the parking requirement is unchanged from the last discussion. The PUD process, which one of the items in the staff report that we had suggested perhaps a discussion would be appropriate. Right now, there's already a requirement for a Plan Commission workshop on a PUD. There had been some discussion previously that the Plan Commission might want the concept review to be the public hearing, the initial public hearing. I think the staff is open to suggestion on this. As it's written right now, there's no change to this section that's being proposed. The advantage of doing a public hearing at the concept review stage as opposed to the preliminary PUD stage would be that if there's a change that's suggested through the public review, either through neighboring property owner or the general public, the petitioner would have the opportunity to incorporate that into the more detailed preliminary PUD application instead of inserting it after they've already done a significant amount of engineering work. So that's the distinction, is that they might be able to get some public input before they're committed.
I seem to recall that aside from PUD, that some of the commissioners were talking about a concept review for large projects that are not necessarily PUDs, but just large projects.
We could insert something like that. I'm trying to think of the best way to describe that, though. There are things that we would consider major by the major versus minor distinction that you might not necessarily want to see every single one of them. So, again, we can try to draft something to show you what it would look like. The board has also expressed some desire to have workshops for major projects. I think
The
open
thing
to,
is, what's major and what's not major.
Well, is it as easy as, well, no, it can't be that easy. I think any new construction should be a workshop, but that's probably makes it too broad.
Why don't you come up with some wording that we can look at?
And-
I know that was a concern.
I don't quite understand make the preliminary PUD should be replaced with a public hearing for a concept review? So making a concept review a public hearing?
well, we were originally asked to take a look at the section to see if there was a opportunity to change the way it's done. Right now, it's a 3-step process. It's concept review, which is 2 meetings, 1 with each body, and then it's preliminary PUD that goes to both bodies, and a final PUD. So there's a
Well, which one's
3-step 6-meeting process. So what we were suggesting is maybe the preliminary PUD is becoming irrelevant because of the amount of detail that's provided at that stage. So it might be appropriate to term the concept review, give more weight to the original concept review and
Okay,
go
take-
straight to final after
Okay, so
that.
take, for example, Kenny. Okay, they came in for what I would consider a workshop.
Right.
Okay, so what you're indicating is that would be eliminated. The group would put more detail into a concept review for a public hearing.
So what I was envisioning would be keep that meeting as it was, take the non-public hearing comments from the Plan Commission, and then come back as a public hearing with a firmer view of that concept. So if there were questions about how they wanted to manage the parking, et
Okay.
cetera, they would then publish the public hearing with a refined concept rather than going from this meeting that they had into the full-blown PUD, full engineering, et cetera.
But I mean, the concept of a public hearing just, to me, implies that there's a lot of work by them to be put into it. And wouldn't they need engineering if it's a public hearing?
The staff didn't have any particular problem with the way it was worded. We were trying to respond to the request to just take a look at the section. So there's nothing in particular we're suggesting. We were just, since we were asked to look at it, we came up with a couple of changes. So
Did we ask for that?
the commission asked us to look at it. The thing that I think the commission asked for is already there.
what I thought.
The idea of the dual concept review is already part of the PUD
Yeah.
process. So if there's nothing to change, we just leave it alone.
I would think I would like to leave that alone, but to Chairman Maloney's point about more wording around what should come before us for a workshop, it needs more attention because, Brookhaven came to us as a public hearing without anything, without a workshop, and maybe it should have been workshopped a little bit. I don't know.
Is there,
Philhaven?
Philhaven, what did I say?
Brookhaven.
Sorry, Philhaven.
so if,
You have a development named after you, Brooke.
one thing that we could suggest, if we get to the end of tonight and there's no other change, I could come up with something to suggest as a condition to add on to this. So we can,
Okay.
I can move on to the rest of them. If this remains the only thing that this would possibly be continued for, we can discuss at the end then.
Sure.
If there's a way to
Yeah,
word it.
I would hate not to.
I think Mr. Stylen brought that up, and I think Dorban also, other than PUD, that an initial concept review, larger
I
project.
mean, one way to handle it would be to say, unless specifically waived by the Director of Community Development, major site plan and appearance review shall require conceptual review. So
That sounds good.
so somebody would have to request, so we can, I'll keep-
Wordsmith it.
I'll keep wordsmithing in
thinking.
my head while I talk about the rest of them.
Okay, fine.
The next one is also one that did change since the last discussion, the parking reduction. My initial thought on the parking reduction for shared parking was that we could probably do away with it because it hasn't been used. I kind of went back and forth. I think in the end, I suggested just a minor change to it. There's still, I guess, a small possibility that somebody could use this rather than just take it out. I don't think it's hurting anything to leave it in.
I would agree.
The next section, there was what this doesn't show here, this insert square footage, this is referring to the shopping center reduction. That was one that we were still calculating out during the last discussion. This was in response to the request from the commission to determine if the shopping center parking regulations were appropriate or not. We went through to see a few examples. What is the ratio based on the uses? What's the ratio based on the total square footage? And I think there is an opportunity here to have a lower level to this that is square footage based, regardless of what the uses are. So that's what is suggested here, is to prevent the percentage based reduction from going so low, still have a square footage cap so that it can't keep going below that point. So it's a limit that's based on a review of a handful of shopping centers and setting it at that level. Are there any questions about that one, or is it pretty well?
Yeah, it's pretty well. Good with it.
Front yard paving, if you take a look at the update memo in front of you, we reviewed this after the report, and I think that there's a simpler way to phrase this. So we're using 30% or 30 feet, whichever is less, as opposed to the way that it was worded that had the extra sentence about the front on a street side.
Okay.
R4, nothing has changed since our last discussion. Any questions on that one?
Nope.
Number 14 is relatively new. We were reading through the definitions and discovered that beverage and alcoholic beverage manufacturing is grouped with a higher intensity manufacturing. It's classified differently than food manufacturing, even though the processes are similar. If you look at the other things that are in medium manufacturing, they do tend to be a fairly intense use of the property. So we were suggesting that beverage manufacturing go with food instead of the heavier manufacturing. Are there any questions on this one?
You're talking about breweries, mini breweries, or like a Ram or something?
Beverages altogether are left out. So this would be both types, both alcoholic and non-alcoholic. So brewery, distillery, the manufacturer of soda. The code is silent on it right now.
So I guess you make a distinction. Medium manufacturing is the only code, the only definition that has further definition.
So alcohol is in medium. Other beverages are
Well,
left
no,
out.
I'm just talking, you have heavy manufacturing here, and it just indicates activities of use, production of explosives, highly flammable liquids, gases, toxic. But then, medium, you have, but this term includes, but not, is not limited to these things. Heavy doesn't have that, and light doesn't have that. Any reason why?
Nothing in particular. I think there is some guidance in light and there's some guidance in heavy about
Yes, right.
the use of raw materials. I don't know why medium gives specific types of businesses and the other two don't. I think maybe it's medium has more opportunity for interpretation. Is it light? Is it heavy? Is it medium? But it's raw material versus not raw material is usually how the distinction's made. Chemical processes, major breaking down of stone and metal tends to be heavier.
So you're taking it out of medium
That's right.
and adding a couple of words to light.
That's right.
Okay.
One reason in particular is we've had alcoholic beverage and beverage manufacturing occur without respect to what the zoning code says it should be classified as, and they've been allowed in the lighter industrial districts historically. I don't want to give a specific example, but we've had beverage manufacturing go on in the light industrial districts, and this one was a little bit of a surprise to see when we read through it.
Would this take care of a restaurant that makes their own beers?
They are still covered by special use. The special uses for those have been pretty specific about how the manufacturer is handled. So the brewery / restaurant is covered, the winery / restaurant's covered.
I'm good.
You talk about the manufacturer, this is not the bottling.
This
This would be
is,
the manufacturing
This would-
versus the bottling.
this would be the process itself, so the bottling, the packaging,
Is separate, different.
this would be all together. This would
Oh.
be everything that they do.
Okay.
So food, for example, can be manufactured, bottled, packaged, and distributed in a lighter industrial district than a beverage
Okay,
currently.
currently.
And the suggestion is to classify them the same way, process as being similar enough that they should be treated similarly.
Yeah, I think, probably.
Number 15, landscape irrigation. This one's not changed from our last discussion, just making a specific reference on the list of requirements. Number 16, there's no change to this from our last discussion. It is a reference to appearance review, where the code currently says site plan. We're adding the word "and appearance" because that is in fact what we do. We've eliminated some of the specific requirements that are becoming outdated because of our switch to a digital submittal. Number 17, major versus minor site plan changes. This is consistent with what we discussed. We hadn't written it out, so if there are any questions on how this looked when it was written out, I'd be happy to go through that. The bottom line here is that the code was written in such a way as to address plans for projects that are currently under construction. So when somebody is building something and they decide midstream that they want to make a change, there is a process. It is a lot less specific about the initial review. So if somebody completely finishes a project, comes back 2 years later, how do we determine major versus minor? That was not in the code. That's what we're suggesting should be added.
Good. That's a good one.
And that is one that the commission specifically asked us for. Any questions on this one? Number 18, text amendment review. There is nothing new from our last discussion. Number 19, if you look at the update memo, is a new one. This has been on our list for a couple of years, and I just completely forgot about it in the last workshop. There's a change at some point in the code, I couldn't determine exactly when, that removed automobile rental completely from the more commercial areas. As a special use, the staff opinion is that it can be reviewed on a case-by-case basis and could be found to be appropriate depending on where the cars are stored. Are they stored on-site, off-site? Do they have a location in the back? So some of these properties could be set up where it would just be an office. So that is the idea, is to expand the number of locations where this would be permitted.
So
And by
you-
permitted, sorry,
wait,
I
are
mean
you making-
special use.
Okay.
It's a special, it is currently left out of these districts
So it would be
completely,
allowed anywhere,
and this would make it a special use.
special use? Okay, so do we have to specify that it's not like allowed in an R1?
In the use table, light motor vehicle rental would be placed in B3, MXT, MXC, and MXI
Okay,
as a special use.
and then because it's a special use, if it came into mixed-use transit, we would then have the say of, for instance, mixed-use transit might be ideal for a car rental,
Very
as
possible.
long as they don't store their cars there.
It's very possible.
Okay,
I mean, the village, for example, owns a property, property within the MXT district. It's possible that one of them could be appropriate for an office with off-site storage. So I think that, generally speaking, you find this type of land use in commercial areas pretty regularly. They do vary on how many cars they have and where they keep them, but it's not that unusual to find them in commercial districts.
yeah, right, exactly.
Andrew, I have a question. What about these cars, you can belong to a group and you can, like they do it with bicycles too?
Zip cars?
Zipcar,
something
iGo.
like that.
iGo.
What does that come under our code?
Good question.
That is a good question.
'Cause, you know, that might be something you might want to find near the train station sometime or
I'm
something.
trying to think of what we would do with that. I don't know if we would do it is a rental that has
There's no office.
there's no office. It is essentially a dedicated parking stall as
Right.
far as the land use is concerned.
I mean, that would, that'd be perfect for, if you get this apartment building and, people rent there because it's close to the train station.
I mean, you can
But need a car.
make the argument that it's that it's accessory to a certain extent to what's going on. If the commission would like us to, we could define car sharing program.
Yeah, I don't think it's germane to these 19 or 20 that you're
I think
having,
it's something
but
we should have in place though, because, with that more use of this train, I can see people living in the city coming out here, but their business might be in Buffalo Grove or well, that's not a good example, but it might be between here and another station. So a zip car, they could get themselves to work, come back, put the car back, and get back on the train. Or in these rentals, they're talking about, they may only have one car, but a husband and wife, both professionals, one goes one way, one goes another. There might be a need for a car on a weekend or something like that.
One possibility is at the end of the section of non-residential use regulations, we could spell out car sharing and car charging, for example, and
That might
just
be part of it.
and just
well,
I say it's not
require-
germane
we
to
could-
this,
we
but
can
it might
note
be
it.
something to work on.
and we could note it and require minor site plan review.
well,
Yeah,
Buffalo
because
Grove
we would
has,
have to make sure that they still have the required parking besides that.
And there's a possibility that one of them, if you just say that it's permitted, could get a lease to do 20 stalls, for example. So you might want some oversight of minor site plan. Where is it located? What type of vehicles, if there's any?
Because they may lease from Metro, whoever owns who owns the parking lot? Do we own one of those parking lots? Or
We do, actually.
they might be a deal with, we could, they're not used that much, that we could lease them four parking spaces or something.
but talking about car charging, Buffalo Grove, the Walgreens at Lick Cook and Buffalo Grove Road has 2 spots there for car charging. Might want to ask them how the village accounted for those.
Well, if the 19 is the end of my list, what we could do there's 2 items, I think, from my notes that might need some sort of tweaking. One is the concept review, adding a specific requirement that major site plan require concept review, major site plan and appearance review require a concept discussion unless specifically waived by the Director of Community Development. We could write that in, if that's okay. And then with the car charging, if there's general agreement that the car charging and car sharing should both require minor site plan review, we can also add that as well.
Is that, anyone opposed to that?
And I think we can define those terms, actually write them into the code as a definition, and then put them in the use table, or just go to that non-residential use section where we put the outdoor dining.
I think non-residential review would be fine.
Okay, I think I can word a condition of approval that would cover both of those.
That's fine.
Based on that, would you like a vote?
Yeah, I'd like to make sure that the commission is satisfied with what's in front. We can always bring it back.
Any comments? We hear a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Please call the roll.
Motion was made by Commissioner Johnson, seconded by Commissioner Rufato. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Rufato, I vote yes. Commissioner Schaaf?
Yes.
Commissioner Burns?
Yes.
And Chairman Maloney?
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. Brooke, good job.
There'll be papers for you to sign.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, approval of minutes of June 14th.
So moved.
Second.
Made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Other business, Mr. Burns.
I have nothing, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Johnson.
Nothing here either.
Mr. Afato.
Nothing.
And Norm.
I have nothing.
And I have nothing. Happy 4th of July to everyone. Be safe. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion made, motion seconded to adjourn. All those in,
Did we get a motion to close the?
Oh, I'm sorry.
motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
We're out of here.
You know, Andrew, I've been meaning to tell you, I love this picture. I show it to everybody.